So it's on to the next season. The Mariners hoping to build off of this year's success and rebound in 2026. But for those unable to move on quite yet, just know that you're not alone. Our crews caught fans letting out their frustrations at Monday's watch party, something some of you at home can probably relate with. Well, today I spoke with a psychology professor at Seattle U, looking for a technical view of what fans across the Northwest are going through.
There are a lot of people in town who have been there from the beginning, who they've been fans for decades of this team, and this is not new to them. There were actually a lot of people in our own newsroom who felt like they were preparing themselves for something like this. How do you deal with something like this?
So there's a sort of a concept from social psychology, and the first part is called BURGE, and BURGE stands for basking in a reflected glory. And that's when a team is successful, you wear their gear, you get excited for them, you refer to them as so basking in reflected glory is this concept that's been around for decades. It's not new, and it's definitely something that has been applied in the research and in practice to a lot of sports. The other side of that coin is called CORF, and that is cutting off reflected failure. And that is the distancing that we do sometimes when a team loses. And so that's like putting the gear away, not talking about them, referring to them as they, not us anymore. And it's a strategy that some folks use to sort of make the loss not seem quite as hard, really. But there's a middle ground also, and that's when you sort of bask in spite of the failure. And I don't know that I would actually even categorize this as a failure, because the M's certainly came a lot farther than they've come in many, many decades. So it was really exciting to see, but it's still disappointing. So it's kind of this middle ground where your identity isn't cut up necessarily, but you can be sad. You can definitely go through some grief around it, and it doesn't really affect your self-esteem. It's like, okay, we're going to pick ourselves up. We're going to try again next season or next year and still support the team. So what we want to try and go for, psychologically speaking, is sort of this middle ground, basking in spite of the perceived failure, I guess.
Yeah. You know, it's been 48 hours since that loss, but it still feels super fresh. What can we do to try to move past it and look ahead to next season?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think that unless it's your job to sort of analyze, you're part of the organization, or you're a sports analyst or something like that, and to kind of go over it and over it and over it, one of the best pieces of advice I can offer is to work on some personal boundaries around the but ifs and the if onlys, right? So the more we find ourselves in conversation with colleagues and with friends, like, if only they had done this, or if only the bats had been hotter, or the pitching had been different. Well, when you catch yourself in the if onlys or the but if this had happened, just sort of bring yourself back to, well, it didn't this time, and focus on the future. That is one difference about sports wins and losses versus other types of grief and loss that people might experience, is that it's a cyclical process, right? So we come around next year, we have a different season and a different viewpoint, and some newly blossomed hope again next season. So it will come again, and it's okay to take the time that you need. Everybody's going to have a different response. Definitely some people are still struggling with this, but others have kind of moved on. So just recognize people are dealing with it in their way. And if you find yourself stuck in the but onlys or but if, to realize you're doing it and tell yourself, okay, that's what it is for now, and we'll move on to next season.
There have been a lot of really tough moments in Seattle sports history. I mean, going back to the loss of the Sonics, to that one play that people don't like to talk about in the Super Bowl, and now this big loss to the Blue Jays. Yeah. As people from Seattle deal with what seems to be bad moment after bad moment, how can we process those things and then do those things that you talked about to be able to then move on to think about what's still ahead, what's still to come?
Well, I mean, I think the trick to that is to not over-focus on just the bad. At least in my work with disaster recovery and whatnot, there's always the other side of the coin. So yes, there's been a lot of bad moments, but there's been a lot of incredible moments as well. And celebrating the MVP, run with Cal Raleigh, and celebrating some of the Super Bowl the Seahawks won, and really not losing sight of also the wins. It's really easy to focus on the things that have come close, but also recognizing that, every year only one team gets to win each of those things. And the Mariners and the Seahawks and the Kraken, lots of big success to celebrate there as well. not to mention the Seattle Storm and lots of other teams too. So we tend to kind of focus on one half. But from a cognitive perspective, it's good to look at the other side of the coin too.
Great point. Well, thank you for providing some perspective. I know a lot of people think, man, this is such a trivial thing. It's sports, but for a lot of us, this means much more than just sports. It's a lot of us.
Yeah.
I would imagine our identity is tied to sports as well.
Yeah, it really can be. There's a lot of self-esteem involved with that and just how well we are doing. And honestly, it's a hard time right now. 2025 has not been the easiest of year. There's been a lot of ups and downs. And this run really brought a lot of folks together. It brought a lot of the city together and a lot of the area and the region together in a way that we haven't seen in quite some time. So I think it's not necessarily just that they didn't make it to the World Series, but also that we might miss a little bit of that connection that we had with all the other fans. Like we kind of go our separate ways a little bit again, and we don't necessarily have to lose that. But under fandom, it's really easy to kind of come together. So that could be a part of the complicated nature of why this particular loss is really hard for folks right now too.
Wow, that's some really good insight there. Well, thank you for being with us and providing this insight here on Arc Seattle.
It's my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.